Hey everybody, this is Lauren Stein, the Manager of Implementation over here at Activate. And today we're going to be covering the improvements in Activate version 10.2. It's going to be a little bit different today. We're going to do more of a demo style presentation rather than slides followed by the demo. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, we're going to start in configuration management because that kind of affects what we're going to be doing. So let's go ahead and go to File, Configuration Management. And one of the topics we're going to cover today is the new ability to void inventory transactions, and with that comes a new inventory user permission to grant access to be able to void inventory transactions. Now, by default, the users are going to be set to no for any existing users prior to the update. I've already changed this to yes. You select the specific user, and I'm logged in as sys right now. And then the inventory section, void inventory transactions, and click edit. Make sure to be in edit mode and select yes for any user that you want to grant access to void inventory transactions. So that's going to be inventory transfers, assemblies, receipts, landed cost, all that good stuff. And this is really a great feature. We'll be showing a demo of that feature in a little bit. All right, and then we've also got some new sales order workflow statuses. So let's go to sales orders, workflow status, and you can see them here. We've got partially invoiced and completed. They are the status types of B and C. So we've got partially invoiced and completed. So make sure that if you wanted to have partially invoiced or completed statuses that don't have a description that says exactly partially invoiced or completed, you are more than welcome to create your own. Just make sure to use the proper status code because that tells Activate how to handle those custom workflow statuses. And that also applies to any other workflow status if you're going to add them as a custom workflow status. So if you have different picked or ready to pick, you don't want them to say exactly that. You can either override it and type what you want manually, or you can create your own in this asterisk line at the bottom for new records. Okay, and then these can be set as defaults based on specific actions happening to your sales orders. So in the sales order section of Configuration Manager, if we go to Order Options, the users with system admin privileges can now set the default workflow statuses for certain scenarios. And if you didn't want it to set to or reset to a specific status after, let's say you reschedule an order, just don't select a value here and it'll stay as the workflow status that it was before you rescheduled it. So rescheduling is if the order status is in back order, so you've got a partially invoiced order and you wanted to go ahead and set that status to scheduled, you can say, I want all my rescheduled orders, so orders going from back order to scheduled, to be ready to pick. And I want all of my orders that have been fully invoiced to be completed. And so that'll be the default. And then also partially invoiced, you have the option of partially invoiced, and then you can also choose from the B, H, N, K, or S statuses. And again, that corresponds with the code that I was showing you a moment ago in the workflow status section of Configuration Manager. And then the pick ticket printed, you'll just have the I type statuses. So like pick in progress or, another custom workflow status that you'd like to do. So this pick tickets being printed, so that's, that tells Activate that somebody in the warehouse is currently pulling items to fulfill this order to your customers. All right, and then the reschedule, just to point out that that's going to be in or R type statuses as well. So that's like not ready to pick or ready to pick. Those are the two status code types that you would be able to select if you were doing custom workflow statuses for these options. And we're going to set that to blank. All right, so that's pretty much it for Configuration Manager. That was the big changes for configuration. So let's go ahead and take a look at the lookup windows. We have a lot of customers that have asked to be able to sort on the lookup windows. Not only will you be able to sort now, but each user, once they sort, that sort will be cached. So when you log out and log back in to activate, you'll still see it sorted the same. So if we sort by description, or we can sort by alternate product ID, clicking it twice will sort it ascending or descending. And you can see at the end of the header, you have this little arrow. I'm not sure if y'all can really see that. It's really light. But if you hover over it, you can see it's sorted by description increasing. And if we click it again, it's description decreasing. And then also that goes for, product class, or I only want to see, I want to sort by keywords. Any field up here, you'll be able to sort now. And again, that sort stays. So if I cancel and I go back in, description is still there. If I close the product window and open the product window again, that sort is still there. And again, if I log out of Activate and log back in, then that sort will also still be there. And that also goes for any of the other lookups. So it goes for the same for customer window. So you could sort by company, contact name, whatever makes sense for you. We just know that this is one of the biggest enhancement requests, definitely an implementation that we get. People always want to be able to sort by what they're seeing on the lookup. So now we have that functionality. And again, that's going to save per user, and it's going to cache. So whenever you log out of Activate and log back in, that sort will still be there. So if you wanted to sort by a specific thing every time, then you just leave it that way, and the next time you log in, it'll be set up properly. So we're going to go back to the product, and we're going to take a look. Actually, before we move on to the next thing, so we've also sped up the lookup. So if you sort based on warehouse availability and you have a lot of transactions or serial numbers or anything that would cause it to bog down in some way, we have now modified the way that we run the query so it speeds up the lookup. Now obviously my demo company doesn't have any slowness issues because it's just, I reload the demo database before we get started here. It's just not a huge database, so there's just not a lot of transactions to be processed or queried. So for those of you that do see slowness issues in the product lookup when you're looking up based on warehouse availability, you will now see a pretty good improvement on the speed at which you see results. And so we're pretty happy about that. So if you've got slowness, again, when using the availability filters, make sure to update to 10.2. All right, so now to the product window. We have added the ability to add multiple vendor product IDs as well as prices. So if we go to A121, let's say you, from the same vendor, can order one product multiple ways. So you can order a version of the product in gallons and another in pails, or you get a different price per case than you do in each. Now you can set up the vendor however many times you need for each distinct record. So that's whether it's different vendor product IDs. So I've got this Berkeley paper for our demo product A121. It's got two product IDs, 103.EA and 103.CS, because to the vendor, these are two different products. And to us, glass cleaner is glass cleaner, whether we purchase it in a case or in each, but we obviously want to store the difference in pricing so the users that are entering this information don't have to do any manual updates other than toggling, which I'll show you in a second, on the PO, the different records so it can update and Activate can know which one to use. So we've got this 103 each with the price is $237 each, and then we've got the 103.CS, which is $20 per case. And a case is 12 eaches of the glass cleaner. So if we open up a PO, which I've got one here, for A121, now when you add that product and it's got multiple vendor records, there'll be a drop down in the vendor product ID. And so you select the new one. So I want to do the each pricing. And when you tab out of it, the price changes to $237 and the unit also changes to each. And if we change this again to the .cs, it changes the unit to case and the price to 20. Now, let's say you don't have a different vendor product ID per se, but you do have different prices. You'll still toggle that in the vendor product ID field. That's where we've got it at this moment. And then you would just select each one. I would probably go ahead and assign a vendor product ID unless y'all have some feedback for us. Obviously, we're open to that. And you can toggle between each prices here in that vendor product ID drop down. All right. And then we've also made some updates to the reports for inventory transactions. So if you use things like bin locations, or if you actually do put notes for each of the lines for the details of each transactions, that will show, as well as a transaction date on the reports. So to show you that, I'm going to go ahead and create a new inventory transfer. And again, we're going to have time at the end to answer any questions, so feel free to send them over through the chat box in the webinar, and then we can cover some of that once we're done demoing some of these new features. So let's go to inventory transfers, new, and then we're going to go between the same warehouses, but we're going to do between bin locations. We're going to transfer one from K30 to K32. Actually, let's do 10. Let's say we're moving some of our items or we're splitting them up into 2 different locations. So you would create a transfer for that. And we'll add a note. And just a note, when you print the inventory transfer before you post it, it's kind of like a pick ticket because it shows you the from warehouse address as well as the ship to warehouse address. So if you're going from one physical location to another, you can print this form to send to maybe your driver or the other warehouse just to let them know, hey, we need to get these shipped from this warehouse to the other warehouse. But the addition to the report is this transaction date, the from location, and the to location, and the detail. And then also we've got the note, so moving locations to make room for more items or something specific to this transfer. You can put that there. All right, and then when we post it, that's when we get the register report, which this is the report that you see when you're running reports from the transaction section of the inventory reports menu. Now you'll see both sides of the transaction. So we have the 10 out of location K30 and 10 into K32, and then the from and to warehouse, as well as, since it's posted, now we have this posted 1228 by SYS, which is the user. So you'll have that information there. So when you run it at a later date, you'll know that anything that doesn't have this posted stamp right here is going to be something that's still open, and anything that does have that posted stamp is something that's going to be posted into inventory. All right, so now that we've shown you the change to the report, now that those changes have been made to all the other inventory transaction reports, but they all pretty much do the same thing. It's posting an inventory transaction. So let's get into voiding inventory sessions. This is a really major enhancement that we've been wanting to put into Activate for a long time. Obviously, nobody likes, if they've posted something incorrectly, that current or before 10.2, the instructions were to create a new session as a negative that matched that original section to remove it from inventory. Well, now you can void inventory sessions that you've posted maybe by mistake, or you didn't update the quantity properly for a process or custom assembly or something like that. So you go to Again, that's from the inventory menu and void inventory session. And that opens this void inventory session window. Let me make it a little bit smaller. And then you just look up the session. So you just click this little magnifying glass. You can filter on different transaction types. So adjustment, assembly, balance adjustment, count. You can void counts now. That's huge. Issue, landed cost, receipt, transfer. Now this does void the entire session. It's not going to void individual transactions within a section. So just keep that in mind. And also, once you've voided something, make sure that, if it's something that's already been invoiced or a PO invoice has been created for a receipt, make sure to go back and repost that receipt, because obviously you did receive something. Unless it was posted completely by mistake, then it doesn't matter. You can just void it. But if you received something and you've already invoiced it and you actually did receive it, make sure to go back and post what you actually did receive with that same date. Again, this negates the need to create a new transaction as a negative to remove something posted by mistake. This not only deletes the session, but it also updates the QuickBooks related QuickBooks journal entries to be updated. So, if that assembly or adjustment was included in a summary journal with other assemblies or adjustments, that portion that you're voiding is going to be removed from that journal entry. That value will be removed. And then once you post it, again, the correct one, it will be recreated as a new journal. And so I'm going to do an assembly. I'm going to void an assembly. We only have one in this demo database. And it's for coffee French roast. So it's kind of the same grid style that we have in the new order manager. And before I void it, I want to open this product to show you that it does have a sales invoice related. Go to transactions, F, and just notice that this was posted 11/16, which it does show you that on the void transactions. It's got the date. And on the transactions tab, that you can see that we also have invoiced one of these. And the unit cost is $165.57, and the unit cost as well for the invoice, the cost of goods sold amount, was $165.56. Or 57, because it's rounded. All right, so let's go ahead and void. So to do so, once you've got the session pulled up, you just click this void. You'll be prompted, are you sure you want to void assembly inventory session 35? We're going to hit yes. And it's voided. And it removes it. So if you have to do multiple sessions, just once you void it, open this up again, filter on whatever you need, open it, and then void it. Obviously, you're probably not going to be doing this on too much of a regular basis, but it is there for you to do multiple sessions. It's just one at a time. So now if we refresh the product window, that assembly session is no longer there, and warehouse F is now -1 on hand because there's nothing else to establish quantity for that invoice that was already created. So let's do what you would have to do, or what you would be prompted to do, is you would go ahead and create a new inventory assembly. Coffee French roast, warehouse F, and we're going to leave everything here except the quantity. We're going to do 100 because that's what it was originally, and save. And if we print this, just to show you the difference between the work order and the register. So the work order is what you would send to either your warehouse internally to let them know what needs to be built, or if you've got some other vendor or somebody else doing this off-site, you would save this as a PDF or print it and mail it to them, or whatever makes sense to you. And you would send this information to them, so they would be prompted to go ahead and, for this one, they would build the items in question. And it tells you, how many you need to build, as well as the total quantity, and then unit quantity is how much it takes to build one. And then they can handwrite, maybe they took it out of a specific location, or they didn't use 125, they used 120 because something happened with the beans or something like that. All right, so let's go ahead and post and hit yes, and we're going to be prompted. So this product has a negative quantity on hand prior to the selected transaction date of 12/2/2016. Or that is the date it goes negative for that invoice. So it's asking, do you want to change the transaction date to 12/2? Actually, I want to change it to 11/16 because that was the original session date. So I'm going to hit cancel, edit, and we're going to go to 11/16. Save and post. And then here is the assembly register. So now that we've actually recreated this, the unit cost, instead of being $165, is now $156.80. And if we close this and go back to the inventory window, now not only is this new assembly session there, but the invoice cost of goods sold amount, or the unit cost sent on that invoice, has been updated to match the updated unit cost for the assembly. So I just wanted to give you an example on how voiding transactions affects things, and just, I'm just going to repeat myself. If you're voiding receipts that have a related purchase invoice, just make sure that you need to repost those receipts and possibly void and recreate those invoices if the price for some reason changed. But of course, if you've already created the PO invoice, you know what the price is, so you could update the unit cost on the receipt if it's different from what's listed on the PO manually on the receipt window to match that. So that way, accrued purchase receipts or whatever you use for the purchases account on your warehouse is properly reconciled. And again, this will prompt the next sync that we run. It will not only remove the value from that original assembly journal, but it will also add a journal entry for the new assembly we've posted because we haven't synced yet, and then it will also go back and update the cost of goods sold amount for that invoice in QuickBooks on that inventory and cost of goods sold journal. Now we do check for a closed book, or the date your books are closed, so we do block you from being able to void that. You'll have to open your books to void a transaction that's in a closed period, and then void it. And then, obviously you'd like to close your books again. You're more than welcome to after you've resolved anything that you need to. You can close your books and run another sync, and you'll be good to go. All right, and so that pretty much ends it for products. So now we're going to get into sales orders and invoicing. Now, one of the kind of miscellaneous improvements for WebStore, which is kind of related to sales orders, is that we've included a new default template for WooCommerce version 2.6 plus. So if you're using WooCommerce and would like to integrate with Activate, or if you're looking at new web stores and WooCommerce is one of the platforms you're looking at, then you'll no longer have to use our native template to create this custom web store integration. Just give it a name. And so now we've got this WooCommerce as a default template. So if we create this, it'll already have certain fields mapped based on the way WooCommerce sends information through the XML. So you'll need that consumer key and the consumer generic. And then if you want to integrate with that, you'll need to purchase the web store integration module if you don't already have it, and contact our support team, and they're more than happy to help you set any new templates up. All right, and then for EDI, if you're doing 3PL warehousing, we've added support for receiving multiple lot numbers on a 945 shipping document or shipment notification from your 3PL warehouse. So let's go to a sales order. And there's no lots entered for this sales order. And if we go to EDI, process EDI, we've got a 945 with multiple lots. I mean, yours is probably not going to say with multiple lots, but bear with me. And then we'll process it. And so now if we check this sales order, the lot numbers have been selected for the product TP201. And, you know, we didn't receive any errors. We have multiple lots selected for the same product on one line without any issues. That was something that a lot of our 945s that are using lots, you know, they've been requesting that. So if you have any questions on how to process EDI, we do have a full webinar on how to process EDI. Feel free to check that out. It goes very much in detail on how to do every document. So now we've just added support for the multiple lot numbers per line. And I wanted to do that on screen today because that gives me package information, since the 945 shipment notification or the warehouse shipment notification sends tracking information for that shipment from your warehouse. And I wanted to show you that due to the addition of the last tracking number listed on the sales order being available in the orders view. So this affects reports, order reports, as well as email templates. In the past, that tracking number didn't have a value in it because Activate, you know, if you have multiple tracking numbers, then which one would Activate display? So now we've elected to display the last one that was created. So just to show you real quick, we'll go to email order. I've got an order template set up. And so we got template, insert, shipped order. And so now you see we've shipped a 1523T using UPS. Use this tracking number to see any delivery details. And then here's the tracking number from the sales order. And just to give you a quick overview, you can go to template, manage message templates, or you can go through the file menu in the main Activate file menu and select your template. And so we've got this, you know, the actual Activate fields are in the brackets. And while you're creating this, once you have the cursor in one of the fields, you can actually insert the field from the list. So, you know, it's in the T's, tracking information. You can add total shipping charges, total amount, you know, any field available in the orders view is available for your message templates. All right, so last month we covered the order manager functionality, so we're not going to go super in depth today unless y'all have specific questions about order manager once we're done with this demonstration. I've got it on the workflow status view currently, and so I wanted to touch on updating workflow statuses using this order manager utility. So let's go to the unassigned status orders and filter on back orders. So we can either add a custom filter and specifically see order statuses of back ordered, or we can click on the header to filter based on order statuses. And so obviously back order is going to be on top now that we've got it in increasing order. And since now we have a new partially invoiced status, it's not going to update anything that was partially invoiced before you updated to 10.2. But we wanted to go ahead and start utilizing it. So now that we've got it sorted, we're going to select the ones that are back ordered. And then you go to Action, Change Workflow Status, and we're going to change this to partially invoiced. And it says 4 orders updated. You say OK. They are removed from the unassigned because now they are partially invoiced. And you can see that they stay checked. We decided to keep it checked because some customers, maybe they're not filtering on workflow status, maybe they're filtering on some other criteria, and they want to do multiple things to these orders. So maybe they wanted to update the workflow status and then print pick tickets or print the sales order or prepare invoices or something like that for those specific orders. So they stay selected. You can clear those selections here at the bottom. So we've got 4 orders marked for action. You can clear all selections, and that will uncheck anything that's selected. Now keep in mind that let's say we stayed on unassigned, we didn't toggle to partially invoiced, and then we checked more. Obviously it's going to add to that selection at the bottom, but if you perform an action on anything that's checked over here after unchecking those, it's only going to do that action on the active button. So even though these were still checked, If we're on unassigned and we check more and we do something else to these other orders, it's only going to update the ones that are on screen. So don't feel like you have to clear it every time. Just wanted to give you a heads up on that. All right, so some of the other good improvements that we've had in Activate 10.2 are improvements to the Prepare Invoices window. So now you will have the ability, if you've set up a credit card service in Configuration Manager with Authorize.net or QuickBooks Merchant Services, during Prepare Invoices, you will be able to process credit cards if there's a credit card listed on the sales orders. And we've also added the functionality to email the invoices that you've created to those customers. So if there's an email address on those orders, then you'll be able to select an email template to fill in all those individual emails with specific information related to their order. So let's go ahead and get in there. I'm just going to do the ones that have emails because I want you to see how that works. You can select any of these. It will only create an email for orders that have a contact email address. Okay, so I've sorted on the contact email address, and I want to go to Action, Prepare Invoices. The Prepare Invoices window has actually been simplified a little bit more, because before you had all these filters and then you had multiple windows that you had to go through and do certain functions in. So we've simplified that. And you can see the invoice date field is up here. Just go ahead and do that down arrow so it's apparent. And then we also have invoice format. So if you have multiple invoice formats, make sure to select the right one when you're invoicing. If you've got an order selected, you can view it from here. And then again, we've got these additional checkboxes. So we've got email, so that tells Activate anything that has any order that has an email address listed. Go ahead and create an email for it to be sent with their unique invoice as a PDF attached. And then also process credit cards. Now, process credit cards is only going to be there if you have a credit card service set up in Configuration Manager. It's not going to be there if you don't. So if you're processing credit cards on your web store and you're not doing it in Activate, obviously you're not going to have that service set up. So this checkbox just won't be available. I'm going to uncheck it because I don't have an actual credit card in my hand to do this with, but just know that that is available if you have that service. And then we also added the ability to add the ship date, ship charge, tracking number information to this window. So $2 and just do a random tracking number. All right, I'll just do it on the one. But this does add a $2 charge to that sales order, as well as the package information on the packages tab. And then we'll prepare invoices. And then this goes through and verifies that everything's ready to go. If there's any orders, you will see them listed on the screen. We've got it here behind us. And then, like I said, these customers had emails on their orders. There's nothing in here right now because you'll have to select a invoice template. So I've got one invoice created, and that uses a template for each individual email, and it uses their unique information per order. So we've got this invoice B3347Z, and the next one's 48, 49. And then you can see the information here changes as we toggle through these as well. And you'll see the attachment here at the bottom. And this will attach it to the invoice that's related to it. Okay, so we'll close. And, obviously if the email addresses are good, it will actually send that email. And then these are errors that we had. So we had one of those 4 orders selected has missing assortment selection. So there's an assortment listed and nothing's been chosen on what products are actually going to be shipped to the customer in that assortment. So you can print those errors, or you could go to view that order. So you can go ahead and modify those assortments and select the quantities that you're going to be shipping. and then hit close. All right, and then the last couple of miscellaneous improvements would be we have added support for CYMA 16.0. So any customers that are using CYMA instead of QuickBooks, we have added support for version 16.0. And then we've also added the ability to drag and drop .msg files from Outlook into Activate. So if for some reason you're saving emails on your desktop instead of just dragging them directly from Outlook, or if you've got Outlook on your local machine but you have a hosted environment for Activate, so let's say if you're on like Right Networks or something, then you can save that email message on your local desktop, copy and paste it onto the desktop of, let's say, Right Networks, and then you can drag and drop that into, let's say, a sales order. So we've got the email tab, and I've got this, check out our new catalog.msg file from Outlook on my local desktop. We're using remote desktop for this demonstration. I can just drag that into the sales order, let go of it, and now this email is attached to the sales order. So that's going to be really helpful for, like I said, for the people that are using hosted environments that are utilizing something like remote desktop to access those environments. And you don't want to have to pay for the extra fee for the maintenance of a program like Outlook. All right, so let's take a look at some of the questions. We got another one here. If we have a customized inventory receipt report, this goes for any customized report, not just receipts. When you update Activate, do you have to handle customized reports separately? Custom reports will remain in place. Any new forms that we have will not override custom reports, because custom reports are saved in the Activate data directory under the custom reports folder. And so anything that's in that custom reports folder that matches the standard report name will be used over the standard report. So even though we've updated these inventory transaction reports, that update is only going to be going into the standard reports file. It's not going to be going to the custom report. So any custom report will remain intact and formatted the way that you are using currently. Okay, and then we have a question about voiding transactions. How does voiding work with lot or serial numbers? So that's when you really need to pay attention. Obviously, if you've invoiced that lot or serial number and you're voiding a transaction that establishes that lot or serial number, you'll need to either recreate the receipt with the same lot or serial number, and then that will update the cost of goods sold on the invoice related to it. Or if you're not only voiding and recreating it as the same, or maybe it was the unit cost or something like that, or the quantity was wrong, or some miscellaneous change. So if it changes the actual lot number when you recreate it, you would also need to void the related invoice that sold that specific lot serial number that you just voided, and then recreate it with the proper lot number and select that new lot number and then re-invoice it. Now when you invoice it again after you voided it, it's going to use the same invoice number as the invoice that you voided, so don't worry about that. It's literally just going to switch out the lot numbers for what you actually shipped your customer. Can you edit posted assemblies or other inventory transactions, or do you have to void and repost? Once it's posted, the only option in version 10.2, well, I guess there are two options still. That old option still exists. You're not going to be able to edit the posted session itself, so you're either going to need to void the session using the void inventory transaction functionality and then recreate it and post it, or just void it if you posted it by complete mistake and you don't have anything to recreate. Or you would need to create a new inventory transaction that matches the original one but a negative. So obviously we would recommend using the void rather than trying to recreate, because then you leave it up to user error. They could maybe you use FIFO, and if they're creating a negative to remove this, they don't select the right date. And so that would create a negative FIFO layer because the date isn't the same. Because, FIFO and LIFO are very date sensitive. So we would definitely recommend updating to 10.2 and using this void functionality, so that way you don't have to worry about that date sensitivity like you would if you were doing it manually. Is the tracking number still populated automatically for using UPS WorldShip or any of the other shipping workstation integrations? Yes, all that works the same. Nothing has changed there. I use the 945 warehouse shipment notice just because, the demo data doesn't have a lot of packages information yet. And so that's just the easiest way for me to get it in there without trying to do the shipping workstation integration and processing that order here on the demo. It's really just for time-saving purposes. And yes, UPS or shipping workstation integration, if you're using FedEx or ShipRush, does populate that tracking number. So if you've already processed those shipments and then you go to prepare invoices, it's going to automatically fill in that information from shipping workstation. For emailing invoices, if there's an account that doesn't have an actual email address listed, will the invoice be printed automatically? If you want to print it, then that's when you would go to print invoices, and that'll be anything that hasn't been unprinted. And so you would check preview and hit OK, and this will be anything that hasn't been printed yet but's been created. So that would be the same functionality as it was before. And email invoices are seen as printed, just to clarify that. Okay, so the last question that we've got is, please review the download process for upgrading to this version. The download process is the same as it always has been to update. So you go to help.activate.com and then go to downloads. Like I said, we've got 10.2 here already on the help site downloads page. And depending on your version that you're on in Activate, as well as the version of QuickBooks that you're using, or if you're using Cyma, you would click update or cumulative. So if you're on version 10.1 SP1 or later, then use the update link and use the cumulative link if you have any older version. So to check your version, you go to help in Activate, about, and then your version number is going to be up here on the top right hand side. So I'm on version 10.2 build 4728, which is the one that's on the help site. So let's say I was on 10.1 SP3, I would use this update link because I'm using QuickBooks US. If you're a Canadian customer, you would use the QuickBooks CA update. If you're UK, it'd be UK, and Australian is this update one right here. If you need to install other workstations, you would just scroll down a little bit to the Activate Workstation section, and it would be the workstation install. QuickBooks, all editions, it doesn't matter what version of QuickBooks you run, Cyma and Intact. And then here are the mobile updates and new installs as well. And just a little note, once you're on the downloads page, we have a link here to the Activate version 10.2. And this is the release notes. Once we've posted this webinar, we'll be adding a link to that on this page as well. It has a link to the update instructions as well as a link to the downloads page. And then here are the major functionality changes are going to be up top. And then a full list of the enhancements and bug fixes are listed at the bottom in this table. And then you just download it. You'll click this, it will download, and you just install that download. You run it on your server, and then you'll be prompted for your Activate ID and password, which is what you use to create support requests upon updating. And then you just run the update, and it installs it, and everything it's good to go. So if you have any questions on how to update, you have any issues with the update, you need help with installs, anything like that, contact our support team. As always, feel free to go to our help site and look up any questions you may have, as well as creating support requests. We're here to help you. We're also open to suggestions. Obviously, when we roll out any improvements, we love to hear your feedback so we can continually improve the software for you because we're here for our customers. All right, so I hope you got some good information out of this webinar. Thank you and have a great end of the year.